1 minute smarter, every market clearer. Welcome to my channel, I'm Claire. Welcome back to today's Tech Deep Dive. Following the conclusion of CES 2026, I've spent a considerable amount of time reviewing and processing the massive influx of information. To be honest, this year's show left me with a lingering sense of dissonance. Historically, CES has been a carnival for geeks, a stage for thinner laptops, faster graphics cards, and breathtaking displays. But this year, I realized that atmosphere has completely shifted. Let's take a closer look at the opening of the show. When AMD CEO Lisa Su took the stage and uttered the words, "Everything tonight is about AI," the sentiment itself wasn't surprising. However, I found that Sue's posture felt more like she was attending the Davos Forum or a World Bank annual meeting, rather than engaging with gamers at a consumer electronics show. The feeling was subtle yet profound. You expect a high-octane rock concert, but the singer gets on stage and spends 2 hours reading a government work report to you. Interestingly, behind this mismatch lies a profound migration of the global semiconductor power center. The most glaring moment of this migration was the treatment of a chip that had been highly anticipated even before its release. The Ryzen 9 9850 X3D, as the new flagship of the X3D family, it should have been the crown jewel of the keynote. Yet, I found this point quite fascinating. During the hours-long presentation, Lisa Su didn't even allocate a single slide to it, merely updating the specification table silently on the official website. This wasn't because it wasn't powerful enough. Let's dive into the data. Figures show that the 9850 X3D leads Intel's top-tier Ultra 285K by about 27% in gaming performance. That sounds brilliant, but if we look at the micro level, you'll find it's more like a golden sample version of the 9800 X3D, with generational performance gains ranging only between 2% and 7%. This incremental update is perhaps one of the reasons AMD felt awkward. In today's elitist narrative, a few $100 CPU seemingly can no longer carry the grand story AMD wants to tell Wall Street. What's even more interesting is the financial logic behind the data. Records indicate that AMD is undergoing an aggressive customer screening process. Compared to selling to budget gamers who only care about playing games, the AI data center business brings in gross margins as high as 50% or even 70%. This cold treatment of the 9850 X3D is actually a signal that AMD is attempting to completely detach itself from the hardware company valuation, logic, and transition toward being an infrastructure platform. This transition became even more explicit in the segments that followed. When Michael Kratsios, a high-ranking White House official in charge of technology policy, took the stage, the time that originally belonged to hardware enthusiasts was completely handed over to policymakers. I found Kratsios's mention of the Mission Genesis initiative very much worth pondering. It marks a deep binding of Silicon Valley giants with national intent. Let's analyze Michael's 3 strategic priorities. First is the so-called removal of innovation barriers. This sounds idealistic, but looking into the details, its essence is regulatory arbitrage. To run faster in the AI race, the federal government has promised to eliminate obstructive regulations, which could mean massive concessions in privacy protection and ethical oversight. Second is the restructuring of power regarding energy. To support the power-hungry AI centers, AMD is even talking about supporting advanced nuclear reactors. An even more aggressive data point lies in the federal government's attempt to push for the federalization of power, ensuring computing hegemony by eliminating state jurisdictions over data center construction. If you don't comply, don't expect internet subsidies. This high-pressure tactic illustrates that AI has shifted from a technical competition into an extension of absolute core national will. By participating in Mission Genesis, AMD integrates massive data from Department of Energy supercomputers into its own closed-loop platform, thereby establishing a moat at the policy level. This centralization of computing power was materialized in a 7,000-pound behemoth, the Helios AI Rack. This weight is equivalent to 2 Tesla Cybertrucks stacked together, integrating 72 top-tier GPUs inside. I found a very thought-provoking shift here. In the PC era, computing power was distributed. You bought a 9850 X3D, took it home, and you own the autonomy of that power. But in the era of Helios, computing power is leased. You can only touch this power through API interfaces or subscription services. AMD talking at length about hardware that individuals cannot touch on a consumer-level stage like CES is effectively announcing. Computing power will no longer serve individual creativity, but rather the dominance of large institutions. Even those products nominally aimed at individuals, such as the Ryzen AI Pro PC, are filled with marketing color. While its performance is decent, packaging it as a local large language model development device is more about riding the AI hype to boost stock prices. As some sharp-tongued critics put it, it's essentially still a computer, but adding the letters AI is like a shot of adrenaline in the capital markets. This anxiety over creating terminology is perfectly reflected in the new Ryzen 400 series mobile processors. Data shows its NPU computing power reaches 60 TOPS, far exceeding competitors. However, in terms of research methods and application scenarios, I found a huge fault line. Aside from blurring backgrounds in video conferences or running rudimentary photo editing plugins, there is currently almost no killer AI application that can justify the value of these 60 TOPS. This reflects the collective confusion of hardware manufacturers as Moore's law slows down. Since they can't provide a leap in basic performance, they must create new terms like AI PC to fill the vacuum. The most jarring part of the entire speech was the AI for the sake of AI demonstrations. For instance, the president of OpenAI took the stage to show a PowerPoint generated by ChatGPT. In 2026, such a demo not only feels outdated, but has even been interpreted as executive laziness and a slight to the audience's intelligence. Furthermore, AMD even showcased a prototype robot with Italian design intended for patient care. However, interestingly, this wasn't even a live demo, but just a few polished videos. In the industry, such PPT robots are often seen as placebos used by companies to keep investors hooked when core growth is stagnant. Behind all of this is a painful identity transformation that AMD is undergoing. AMD was once that passionate youth struggling in the depths of the bulldozer era, finally using Ryzen processors to revolt against hegemony. It stood on the side of the players, providing high-value tools. But the current AMD has become a behemoth with tens of billions in annual revenue. It has put on a suit, walked into the White House, and become more mature, more cunning, and more like a cold, computing bureaucrat. This transformation is not without cost. As warned in the materials, the prosperity of the semiconductor industry has historically been driven by bottom-up demand. Whether it was the popularization of the PC, the explosion of the mobile internet, or gamers' pursuit of ultimate graphics. If AMD chooses to give the cold shoulder to the core players who supported it through its darkest nights, just to exchange for an entry ticket to the AI era, then it is overdrawing its most precious asset: brand credibility. Data can calculate computing power, but it cannot calculate human hearts. When a tech brand stops talking about people and only talks about policy and $100 billion orders, it has reached a dangerous watershed. CES 2026 might make AMD's financial reports look very good. But in the shadow of the grand narrative, those loyal users left in the corner are quietly taking off their armor and looking for a new challenger. I want to end today's share with a simple metaphor. If technology in the PC era was like a steel blade that everyone could hold, then the AI future AMD is depicting is more like an unreachable power plant. Although the voltage is stronger, ordinary people have lost control over the spark. I hope that at the next CES, we can see the AMD that once again respects hardware and respects players, rather than a computing agent who merely recites policy briefs. Thanks for listening. If you have different views on AMD's transformation, feel free to leave a comment. See you next time. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe to stay tuned. I always appreciate your feedback, so drop a comment below. Thanks for listening, and catch you later.